Hey, I'm Morgan,
I'm Chris. Welcome to the Midlife Mud.
where we promise to bring the real shit, all the grit, and pretty much zero clue about how to deal with this crazy phase of life.
And by the way, because this is all about feeling less alone, what we want most is to connect with you.
Absolutely. So take a few seconds and visit themidlifemud.com and join our community.
And you'll stay up to date on all the dirt.
And even better, become a part of the conversation.
We can't wait to see you there. All right, tighten those boots and let's get muddy. Hello, hello, hello.
Wait, did you clap? I didn't see you clap.
Yes, I clapped.
We must sync up the audio. Okay, so yeah, welcome back. Obviously, we're discombobulated, and by we, I mean me.
I fucking clapped. So I did.
It was
my
a
job.
very weenie clap, and you are wrapped in like 400 grandma blankets, so
I think you have wax in your ears.
I probably do. I have a problem with that sometimes.
Yeah, me too. It's probably genetic.
TMI, I don't know. You know what I am doing right now, though, is admiring your hat.
Well, before we talk about the actual hat that you're admiring,
The hat.
which you should be,
Yes.
I want to talk about an evolution that I've made in the last year. I went from being literally a non-hat person,
No hat.
professedly.
I know you professed it to me.
I'm not a hat person.
You're not.
But now I've turned into a hat person. And I don't know why. I can only say
What was it? Was it the trip?
it happened in New Mexico.
Yeah, it was the trip. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We're talking about the hiking trip, the Philmont trip.
I went out there with a hat, but I wasn't bonded to it. Came back, hat.
Bonded.
Yep.
You know what I wish we had done, like if I could make it look cool, was the branding thing that they would do to the hats.
Yes.
But like I had this Adidas workout hat and it would have looked really stupid on that.
Yeah.
But on a trucker hat or something, it would have looked really cool.
Yes, it would have looked cool.
And I would have worn that.
But it sort of inspired me. I called you recently and said, I have a vision. We have to make a hat
For the podcast.
for the podcast.
Yes.
And then we did it together.
So we now have
Yeah.
just two individual hats of our
It
own.
was a fun design project.
Yeah, we designed it. Yeah, and it says the mud and it has our tagline on it.
Yeah, I was out I was out today and somebody goes, what is that? Well, that's my podcast. And they're like,
This
oh.
is midlife, bitch. No. I love it. I love it. Nobody has asked me about mine yet, but
I did have to sort of tamp down the spark a little bit.
I mean, yeah, I get it. We're like the only two people that really know about this podcast. But we're proud, damn it. So,
I mean, I am getting fucking ridiculed at home for the hat.
oh, you are not alone, my friend. The teenage boys are like
Bruh.
gunning for me. Anyway, yeah, what are we doing today? I'm just going to stall.
All right. So we left off in a heavy pasture of mud
Yeah.
that had some bright spots where I really had an opportunity to tell some of my story.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about the theme of it is really a homecoming, a transition from all of the layers that we put on in life, going back to the core of who we are and the stories that correlate to that.
Yeah. And how that's sort of quintessential midlife.
Yeah.
You know, how that's the time that there's a pull to do that.
Yes. And I'm incredibly pleased to announce that it's your turn to do it.
How about no thanks?
And
I'm just kidding.
I will be your wingman. Never leave your wingman.
Never. All right, Goose. Is that me? Is that me taking the floor then?
You're on. You're up.
I'm on. Okay, so this ties in some, as you know, to your story. The way that you spoke about it was that sort of pivotal moment that you, maybe not consciously, but looking back, started to use coping mechanisms to protect yourself, right?
Yes.
And then you kind of went on your journey and have come back around to more of who you are. For me, it really was that same time frame when you were sent away.
So do you have a year in mind?
Was it 1992 is what you said?
1992.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, back to your example of the airport. And if you have not listened to episode 6, then please go back and listen to that first. That, like I said, was a tumultuous time in our family. And gosh, how old would I have been? 12?
Oh, I was 15, so you would have been 11.
11? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was only a year older than my youngest is right now. That's crazy.
That's startling.
It is. So that's an important time, right? That sort of preteen, teen time.
Yeah.
And I got the message then that if I was going to stay safe and protect myself, I was going to have to control, perfect, and excel at everything I did. Because the message that I sort of absorbed, even though it was not said to me explicitly in any way, it is the story that I created, witnessing what I saw. And that was that if you don't walk the line, you're out. You're going. You're not part of the family anymore, right?
Yeah.
Along with that, there were some beliefs that I subscribed to, which were like, I cannot give anybody a reason to criticize me. I have to be good.
Yes.
And I have to be prepared for anything. I have to be vigilant in all ways. So when you piece all of that together, that is a fucking recipe for disaster. I mean,
oh, yeah, for sure.
You cannot maintain that.
So I'm imagining, it still is startling to me, an 11-year-old Morgan.
Which is like 6 months older than my daughter.
And just to add some visual, you went to a private school in town, private day school. And remember you used to wear that little outfit to school?
The uniforms?
The uniform.
Oh, hell yeah. I remember that.
So that's my parting vision of you. So I'm imagining you standing in your uniform that was like navy blue or something with some like skirt and a white shirt. And I'm wondering, what did that look like? Can you give an example of what being good, perfect, safe, like?
Multitude of things. Yes. So, and I do have a couple of examples. But what I first want to say, other than the fact that this is so difficult to maintain through a lifetime. You sign up to do it for a short period of time, you might be able to get away with it, but at some point, you're going to hit a fucking wall. And the problem here for me, like the metaphor I want to set up here for everybody is, this is also because I see this so often with my clients that I coach. Like this is a pervasive issue for people. So I know there are other people out there that are in this similar situation. It created a situation where I was sort of in an instant pot. Okay. Like that was my life. And what's sort of insidious about this control, perfect, excel tactic is that you are heavily rewarded for it in our society.
Heavily.
You get pats on the back all the time. Like, this is not a problem. Why would anybody think this is a problem? Which only makes you feel like you have to keep it up. It increases that pressure even more. So, to your point, example. So, I used to share a room and a bathroom with our younger sister. And I remember, like, one year for Christmas, in my stocking, I got a 4-pack of those lip smacker chapsticks, and they were all different flavors. So in our bathroom, on that little ledge that's against the wall under the light switch,
Yes.
What do you call that? The backsplash or something?
Yeah.
I would line up my lip smacker chapsticks with the label facing out, equidistant apart. Like, I would take time. Every time I used one of them, I would make sure that it went back in the right spot. Part of that was for just the illusion of perfection, right? Part of it was because if our sister were to use it,
you would know.
So it was my attempt at vigilance. That's how I monitored things. And I look back on that now and I'm like, holy hell, girl, like, calm down. That's just one little thing I did at a young age that was like that sort of control thing. I also, part of that being good thing, I always believed in rules. Like, I always followed the rules, and I still do. Like, one of my good friends kind of makes fun of me for it. She's like, "Oh, it's against the rules. You won't do it." I think the worst thing I have ever done was sneak into a movie, and it felt like, ooh, to me. So again, attached to that is this belief that if you do what you're supposed to do, quote unquote, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't give anybody any room to send you away or ostracize you or punish you, any of that. And I also, as a result of that, I think pass judgment on people that did break the rules.
Yeah.
Like, they're bad, I'm good. which I think also made our relationship really complex.
Oh.
Early on.
Big time.
Yeah. Because it was a little bit like, well, he didn't follow the rules. So now that makes sense that he's gone. And then later in life, it was like, wait, hold on a second.
Well, we went through a little bump.
We did.
For a few years where we had to get over that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we ever really explicitly talked a ton about that.
Yeah.
But I like the lip smacker example. And I'm hearing a lot of like internal monitoring, right? You're monitoring yourself. Are there examples of external forces that reinforce this belief?
I told myself that story.
I mean, I think your 15-year-old brother randomly getting shipped off across the country is probably good enough, right?
That did it. That was really scary for me because I thought, holy shit, I am also very much an introverted person. And the thought of being ripped up from my comfort zone and sent somewhere where I didn't know anyone, away from my family, away from my friends, felt absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was that. I think that had just a really incredible, huge impact on me. And it followed me. When I got into dental school, I was what they call a gunner.
You say that term with such affection.
Yeah. Everybody loves a gunner. Anybody who's been in professional, at least professional school, I don't know if it's a term that's used other places, but at least in professional school, the term gunner means that you are that person who will almost gun other people down to get the best grade possible, right? I didn't ever see it as myself. I was never trying to put anyone else down. But I was very hyper-focused on doing extremely well. And there was so much underneath that. It also means I was not very well liked. Nobody really wants to be around those people. Most people kind of look at you with either disdain or jealousy, whatever it is, they don't like you. I'm in my 20s. Like, I'm a grown-ass woman I was married by this point.
Well, we're technically not really grown until now.
I thought it was when the frontal lobe thing.
Well, there's actually neuroscience that suggests 25.
Right.
And I've heard different things about this. I've heard that it's a little bit sooner for girls than it is for guys. I don't know.
But still.
But early 20s is still not fully cooked.
But it's still old enough to understand that you don't need to go to your oral surgery professor and argue a 1-point test question with him. I did that.
Wow. What drove that? Like, what, if you got that point, what was going to happen?
I imagine, I can't remember exactly, but I imagine it was the difference between me getting an A or a B in the class, which would impact my class rank, which would impact my ego and my potential ability to get into a specialty program. I mean, I'm just very, very focused. And so I carried that in through what specialty I chose. Like, I chose orthodontics, perfectionistic galore.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about straightening teeth millimeters at a time into exactly the right, and it, even in my career as an orthodontist, it has shot me in the foot many times because sometimes in the past, I'm a lot better about it now, but I would hold patients hostage because I was like, oh, that incisor's a little bit off. They don't fucking care. They don't even notice it, but I notice it. And by golly, I'm not going to have one of my patients walking around with that. Blah, 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 blah. So the bottom line to all of that is that there was always this really quiet intensity and inner turmoil in me. And it really did separate me from people. There was a disconnect between me and other people for that reason. It also made me so focused on the goal, very goal-oriented, very driven. Again, all great things in our society. And it took me far. But damn it, disconnection, anxiety, all of my self-worth was tied to my achievements. And guess what? Even when I achieved the things, that boost in self-worth would only last for like a microsecond before it was, now I got to do this,
And then you noticed the incisor was crooked.
Right. Got to fix that incisor.
So when you walked in as a freshman in dental school, did you have like the next blah, blah, blah years mapped out?
No.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. I never really wanted to do dentistry.
Wait, I thought you were super passionate about dentistry.
Right. Gave that vibe, didn't I? No. I really think it was a sure thing. Our mom worked at the dental school as the clinical dean.
That's a loaded issue.
Yeah. I had a summer job there in college in the admissions office. So I was exposed to it, even though I wasn't, at that time, my college track wasn't taking me in that direction. And then I started dating my husband, who I met there, and he is a dentist. And so it sort of felt like, well, okay, everybody else is doing it. And also, it's perfect for someone like me that's a perfectionist and detail-oriented. And it's challenging, and it says something about who I am if I can accomplish this.
Right.
So that's all I knew. It's just, I'm going to do the best of the best and then pick the most competitive specialty that, it was just, it was a proving myself thing.
Like, did you have an idea of what you were proving?
Who knows? Who knows? Just that I could do it and that I was good enough.
Yep.
Really. And kind of to your point when you were talking about your story, all of this really kept me from even entertaining the idea of exploring whatever the hell it is I'm actually meant to be doing here with this life. Because it ain't straightening teeth, It's not. I'm going to do that. I've been doing that. But that is not the reason that I'm here. And then, of course, the pressure just continued to build to the point where it wasn't sustainable. And so I had various tipping points. I am 43 right now. I'd probably say the last 12 to 15 years have had these tipping points. And so the first one, and I will say each one kind of released a little bit of the pressure in that pressure pot, but not like a full-blown release. It's just like a little whoop and then close it back up. The first one was in 2014 when I had to sell my ortho practice.
I remember visiting you there.
Yeah, and I put a lot of, I knew my senior year of dental school when we did a practice management course. And I knew when I graduated from my orthodontic residency, I had no interest, none whatsoever, in owning my own dental practice. And yet, I opened my own dental practice. Tell me why the fuck that makes sense.
Yeah. What drove you in that moment?
There was, again, probably some of that got to prove myself. I also didn't want to, I don't know. I didn't want to feel like a sellout.
Yeah.
At the time, a lot of people that I knew were going and working as associates in big corporate companies. And I just didn't want to do that. I thought that would be selling out. But what I did made zero sense. So I opened up this ortho practice, and I had this practice for 4 years.
I mean, that thing was like an Apple store.
Hell. That's what I did, is I didn't skimp on expenses, and it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. Every month, I would have to text my husband to say, okay, in order to cover my bills at the practice this month, I need $10,000. And so he would float me $10,000 from his practice. And the dynamic that set up in our marriage felt really gross to me. I mean, he was so generous and so caring, and he did not make a thing of it. I made a thing of it. It's like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. Again, hyper-independence is also a problem of mine, so.
No. I've never observed that.
So I saw, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to sell the practice and sort of get out from underneath the debt, which I should have seen as a total triumph. But I didn't at first. I felt like it was just an utter failure. Like, I set out to do this thing and it didn't work. I wasn't good at it. And what's funny looking back now is like, why the hell did I do this when I knew I didn't want to do it? I knew way deep down, what are you doing? And why was I so upset over failing at something I never wanted to do in the first place? Right? It doesn't make sense. And yet I think it was really linked to that perfectionism thing. And that was probably the first time I really understood, okay, this perfectionism thing it's a myth. I really can't be great at everything. And this didn't kill me. Like I quote unquote failed at having my own practice, and I'm not dead.
Right.
In fact, I'm relieved that I'm out from under it. So that was the first sort of tipping point for me.
So you went into that wanting to kind of, or at least what I heard you say, is prove that you could do it, right? A private practice. And then you came out of that, and there was obviously some failure involved. But what tipped? Like, if you could drill it down like to a thing, what was different about your mindset walking away from that versus walking into it?
Well, I think it was the fact that I didn't succeed at it, and it did not kill me.
Right.
There was the acknowledgement that it was okay.
So where was that perfectionistic element for you
At that moment,
in the post-practice? Yeah.
it wasn't gone. I mean, I'm still fighting with it, to be 100% honest. It's part of my story. It's part of who I am.
Yeah.
The difference is that was like the first chink in the armor where it was like, this is not helping you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was a very, very small, very soft voice. And I didn't just embrace that and run and totally morph into this different person from that moment on. It was just a little acknowledgement of, hey, didn't kill ya. You're okay. But then I went on with life.
Yeah. I recall a lot of turmoil about that.
Yeah.
Where you felt really relieved and then you were like, oh my God, I'm a failure.
I was embarrassed. It was to the point where even if I went to professional conferences, dental conferences, I avoided them because I didn't, or reunions with my residency mates. I didn't want to have to say, yeah, I couldn't hack it. Like, it just really felt like shit.
I can relate to that so much.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not exactly with the perfectionistic thing.
Yeah.
Although someone did call me anal today, which is progress for me. But that idea of, oh my God, like, people are going to look at me as having failed. And I'm going to avoid situations because of that.
And what it really was me. It was me. I don't know who cares what they said, what they thought. Likely that they really didn't care enough to think anything about it. But moving into 2017, let's set the stage. This was January 2017, so I'm not getting political, but it was literally on the day of the inauguration of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So that time was a time of a lot of divisiveness, a lot of stress in our country in particular. And, I certainly wasn't immune to that. And then you add on all the other stress I was putting on myself just from operating the way that I was. There was a ton of uncertainty and just toxicity and negativity going around.
Mm-hmm.
And I got shingles.
Oh.
I was 35. Shingles is not something I recommend to anybody. I had a really, really severe case. I remember I was eating lunch in my car, Chick-fil-A of all things, and I was talking to one of my friends. She was coming to me to fix every problem in her life, and I was taking that role. It was so unhealthy.
Right.
We have since come a long way, but I was listening to her talk about her life and her problems. I was eating Chick-fil-A in my car. This was during a work day, and I had this headache that was like lightning going through my neck and into the front right part of my head, just on the one side.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is weird. And so I remember I tried to book a massage. I was like, maybe I just have a crick in my neck or something. And by the next day, I woke up and I had these really light red marks on my forehead. And I was like, So I texted our dad, who is a physician. By the way, it's just awesome to have a dad that's a physician.
It is. But there are some dark sides to it. Like, once you get him going and you turn on that program, it's never coming off.
Then you're about to die.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a hypochondriac. But I sent him the picture and I was like, is this anything? Well, shingles is in my differential. I'm like, what the shingles? People over 65 get shingles. So I went to urgent care because it got really, really bad. And sure enough, by then, the vesicular stuff started breaking out. It got into my eye. Had to basically stay in the dark for a couple of months. I couldn't drive. I couldn't do anything that required me to be in the light.
Right. Not weeks, months.
Yeah. I mean, it really was like 2 months.
Yeah.
And Matt just took the wheel. We had 4 kids and our youngest was 3 at that time. She didn't understand why I was bedridden. And I tell this story because the story that I have attached to this, whether it's true or not, it was clear to me in that moment that the way I was living my life, I couldn't do it that way anymore. Mm-hmm. I wasn't taking care of myself physically. I wasn't taking care of myself emotionally. The level of stress that I was putting myself under, and I say it that way because that's exactly what I was doing. I was putting myself under that stress. Yeah. I needed to do it differently. And I remember pleading. I couldn't sleep at night a lot of the time. I was up in the middle of the night. I remember just pleading with God, please, I will do anything. I will do it right this time. Please, just let me get over this. Not that I was suicidal, but I had a little bit of an understanding of being in so much pain that you would want to be gone. And that really scared me because I had these 4 kids. I have this beautiful life. And here I was in such pain. And I say it because I had set myself up in a way that I was suffering, and it didn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
The little exclamation point on that was, I did finally heal from that, thank God. But then 2020 comes along and the pandemic, and it's like, oh yeah, you're not in control, bitch. I think from all of that, it was, okay, the only thing I'm in control of is myself.
Yeah.
That's it. And I am the one that chose to live the way that I was living. And I didn't have to do that anymore. So more of that pressure was let out a little bit. Again, not completely.
I am curious because I know that one of the things that you found amidst these little moments is coaching.
Mm-hmm.
When did you find that?
It was in 2020 that I found coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so convinced. I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do. It was so clear to me. And it still is. I'm like, this is the thing.
Why?
Some of it, I think, has to do with understanding what I have learned through this experience of my life, that it was a choice. I think a lot of people don't see that. And the second I recognize that, hey, this is a choice and I can do it differently, that's when things really started to shift for me. And I want other people to do that. I really want other people to connect with who they really are and what they're really meant to be doing. It's a pay it forward thing, I think.
Yeah.
And, now we come to 2024 where I've got 3 teenage boys, 2 of which are doing what they're supposed to be doing as teenagers, meaning that they are really testing the boundaries and leaning into their increasing independence.
Yeah.
But it got really scary. And I won't say a lot in terms of details because I want to respect their privacy. But for me as a parent, there were some things that they were involved in that were not safe, were not healthy. And back to this cyclic nature that you and I had talked about last time, I was so wounded from what happened with you when you were a teenager that I was so terrified they were going to go down sort of a similar path, while also understanding from a parent perspective that I really didn't want to make them feel abandoned in any way. So I was constantly juggling this, how do I guide them in the right way, but also have their back?
Yeah.
I didn't want to be like a punitive parent or a parent that didn't know what to do,
No parent knows what to do.
I know. They don't.
And there's no book about it.
And each kid is different.
It's different.
Too.
Yeah.
But it took me some work. It took me being coached some as well.
Where did perfectionism live in that process of trying to figure out how to maintain a connection with your boys?
It got in the way of it.
Right?
Right. Well, some of my reaction was so fear-based.
Yeah.
I just really didn't want them to get hurt.
Yeah.
It was less about image. I mean, there's always that. There is a little bit of people know what's going on and people are talking, That doesn't always feel great.
Yeah.
But for me, it was more fear about if I don't get it right, something will go really wrong. It wasn't so much about me as much as it was, I'm just really scared they're going to get hurt or hurt someone else for that matter. And so we had a really rough year and a half, I would say. It was hell. But through being coached and through a lot of trial and error, getting it wrong, sometimes getting it right, and then getting slapped in the face with the next thing,
Yeah.
Is a very dynamic situation. I came to the understanding that the absolute most important thing above all else was just being connected to them. And I think part of what really brought that home for me, this past August, my husband and I were on our way with our just turned 15-year-old.
Oh, there's that age again.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
God bless.
But one of our traditions, once the kids become teenagers, for their birthday, Matt and I take them out to dinner to wherever they want to go, usually somewhere really nice. And so that's what we were doing. We were celebrating, this is my second son, his birthday. We were taking him to dinner. It was a beautiful Sunday, late afternoon, early evening. The sun was shining. I mean, it was a gorgeous day. And we're driving along in my Tahoe. Matt was driving. And we got into this scary as hell car accident. Was not our fault, but our car completely flipped over and spun around and skidded half a block on its roof.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were all okay, which is a miracle. But I really did see it in slow motion. And it felt like we were skidding along for like 30 minutes. And my thought was, what the hell are we going to hit? Or this is how I die. There was just such a back to midlife calling you and saying you're halfway to dead. I felt like you're going to die now. Is this what you want? Have you done what you want to do? Because you're dead now. Damn it, that's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And so after I went, I found out about myself that when I go into shock, I'm real good under pressure. I was like, we need to get out of the car before it blows up. There was some guy that had seen the accident, and he's like, is everybody okay? I mean, of course, all of our airbags had deployed. We could not see anything. We're hanging upside down.
Right.
And there's like this dust and smoke, and I'm like, oh my God, the car's going to explode. So he's like, is everybody okay? How many are in there? Matt was kind of like, we're okay. We're fine. I said, there's 3 of us. We need to get out of this car. Yeah, it's just very like barking orders, and like the emotion didn't hit me until we got out and we were standing there on the side of the street. And I saw my son standing there. And oh my God, like I grabbed him and just squeezed him as tight as I could and sobbed, which I think scared the shit out of him because he had never seen me cry like that.
Yeah.
That was when I was just like, it could just be gone, It could all be gone. And these humans that I'm raising they're coming into adulthood, and they have choices that they are going to make, and I may not agree with them.
Yeah.
I can guide them, but I can only guide them if I'm really connected to them and if I'm willing to accept whatever decision they make, So the takeaway there was really that I can be hypervigilant, I can control, I can perfect, I can excel all I want to, and then I'm dead. What's the point? And so where I am today, I'm still in the pot. This is still an evolving process. But I think the pressure's out and the lid is kind of cracked open. I feel like I have really let go of the hustle.
Yeah.
And I know it because I just feel so much more relaxed. Like, for instance, over the ski trip, we were snowed in. And we were supposed to get up at like 4:30 in the morning and take a 2-wheel drive 12-passenger van down a mountain in 40-mile-per-hour winds in the dark, -teen wind chill on snow-covered roads to drive for 3 hours and go to the airport. And I just woke up and I was like, no, we're not going to do that. And it was okay. I knew we would figure something out.
Yeah.
I think old me, control freak me, would have been like, what do we do? We need to figure this out, And instead, I was able to be present. I was there. We had an extra day. It was more time. It was a lovely day.
So there was a beautiful moment in that last day that was what I'm going to call the extra day.
Yeah.
The day
bonus
after you said, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you rented Real Genius.
Yeah, because we had just talked about it.
And you said, we're going to sit down and watch this movie together. I thought that your husband might jump out the window, but we all did it. And, it was a shared experience. And I looked at that as such a bonus.
Yeah.
And I think, more and more, there's just so much beauty in being able to let go of an idea or a plan that you had so that you can be present for what's actually happening and unfolding instead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Being able to relax into just being where you are.
Yes.
There's so much there. It's right in front of your fucking face.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Even on the bad days.
Right. And so I think that is where I am. I have learned that, not just that I've learned, I'm practicing that idea of just being where I am and being connected. And I really do think that I've found my my calling, my purpose, the reason that I'm here.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that calling is that it applies in every area of my life. It's not just like a career. It is something that is infused into my relationships with every person in my life. It shows up in my coaching work. It shows up in this podcast. And it just feels so good to know that I have come back to who I really am and what I'm really meant to be doing, what I'm really meant to be giving and offering, whether people take it or not. I'm putting it out there. And I was not doing that before.
Yeah.
Because I was too scared. It was too scary. It felt too unsafe.
I have been honored to watch you, and it's just been a joy, approach parenting and really trying to figure out that balance of establishing a connection, allowing for some independence, letting go of some control with your kids. And even though I really have been on the periphery of that, there's an aspect of it that has just been so fucking healing, given where we came from. And to watch you stand up and really push to change that mold it's just been a joy to watch. Really has.
Well, thank you. You have been instrumental. You and I have had many talks about this stuff.
Never leave your wingman.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting. And this kind of brings us into the micronutrient. I want to tie together our stories here.
Yeah.
And I told you this before. What I notice when I look at our stories is we start as ourselves. And then because of this one event that impacted both of us in different ways, we went these different routes, like almost opposite ways.
Yeah.
And on the outside, people might have looked at me and been like, well, damn, she's killing it.
Right.
Like, no problem there. And they might have looked at you and been like, oh, he's really struggling with the divorce and the this and the whatever. And yet what was really true is there was suffering happening regardless, because both of us were armored up in different ways to stay safe, to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I was thinking of this analogy of like you really had that story of being the athlete with the perfect record. And I was the athlete that had a hell of a lot of potential, but my record was kind of shaky.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was afraid that I would never be able to climb out of that. And you were afraid of losing your title.
Yeah.
So there's like the consistency of fear across both.
Absolutely.
And the thing that is so interesting, you and I are very different people in a lot of ways, but there are some core ingredients, #fucking grit.
Yeah.
That show up for both of us.
Yeah.
And yeah, that may be translated on the surface looking a little bit different. But Jesus, we both really worked hard to try to produce something.
Yeah. And it's crazy that we're both in this place within the last 6 months to a year. This has been the culmination.
Yeah.
All of that kind of coming off, like putting all of that crap down.
Yes.
And so was born the podcast.
And I kind of feel in some ways like we're back in the suburban again.
I know. Yeah.
I'm still waiting for you to put paper towels in your cheeks.
I have some right here.
Like you used to do. Awesome.
No, it's my nostrils and my ears.
But like back to that core aspect of us and who we are individually and who we are interacting.
Yeah. And I know this story, our stories, I would venture to say a hell of a lot of people out there in this age group and not in this age group for that matter.
Yeah.
It's not unique.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's like this being on top of the ski run where you're like, God damn it, I have to go down that to get lunch.
Do you want lunch or not?
I don't want to do that.
I'm not hungry.
You know? And for you, it was a blue run. And for me, I had the exact same experience in the wilderness of Canada. Just scary.
It is scary. It's scary to put all that shit down.
Right.
But ultimately, I think the quintessential midlife experience is that the shit gets too heavy. It's not working anymore. In fact, it's working against you. And you hit some kind of wall where you understand that and you're called to come home.
Yeah.
And I would love to know, for those who are listening, have you been called at this stage?
And are you answering that call?
Exactly. And how?
Yeah. And fundamentally, it's a fascinating thing because I feel this evolution in me, this return to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But, a lot of it's looking back over my shoulder in the last 6 months and like realizing how I feel inside day to day now as compared to how I felt inside like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that there's always like this crash, bang, lightning thing that happens.
No.
It's just...
I would say it's probably not like that most of the time.
It's just back to the values thing.
Yeah.
And you didn't explicitly talk about values tonight.
But it absolute connection was there.
You didn't call them that, but you talked about them.
Yeah.
And you talked about them in the way that you approach being a parent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there you go. That's a little bit about my journey. Any other take-home points, invitations, jokes, haikus?
I don't even know what a haiku is.
I would have to look it up. I kind of know. There's something about syllables.
Ooh, I thought you were going to bust it out. You had this.
I'm not perfect, damn it. I don't know everything.
I just wanted to prove it. Now we can end the show.
All right. And with that, we will see you next time.
In the Mud. Thanks for being with us in the mud today.
If you liked this episode, do us a huge favor and subscribe to the show. This is going to make sure you never miss an episode, and it's going to help us grow our muddy community, which would mean the world to us.
See you next time in the mud.